97.9 The Box is the Madd Hatta Morning Show, and good morning. In the studio with us this morning, Grammy Award nominated gospel artist straight out of H-Town, James Fortune is in the building.
Yes, sir. How you doing, man?
James, I'm gonna be honest with you, when they say James Fortune demanded to come on the show,
Yeah.
I'm gonna be honest, I went to my boss and I said, look, boss, Mr. Fortune has been through a lot of trials and tribulations in the last few years. I don't know if that is highly recommended. Maybe you need to go back to his management and ask if that's what he requested was to be on our show.
Yeah.
She said, James just asked me personally if he can be on the show.
Absolutely.
Either say yay or nay so I can get this man an answer. Like, hold on, boss. Get a little rough with me now. I said, tell him yay, but I say, I mean, there's no way for us to have this conversation without asking the really tough questions.
Absolutely.
You know, which... And all of it's hard, James, because I've known you for a very, 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 very long time.
Yeah.
And this is going to sound the most ridiculous of all. And I think J Mac would agree. You look at somebody, you feel like you know them, and you don't even think they're capable of doing something like this.
Yeah.
And that's the hardest part. You just remember this dude that you seen come up, that you seen grinding, that you work hard.
Yeah.
And then you hear all these other situations. I'm like, I don't know if I know who that person is.
Yeah.
So before I even get into all that, I know that there are other people that are probably standoff with you now because of this situation.
Absolutely.
So I'm just curious how you're dealing with that, and then we'll get back to all the other stuff as well.
Well, you know, it was challenging. A lot of basically all of my concerts at that time, you know, this was in 2014. You know, were canceled, and you know, a lot of people believed everything that the media was reporting, which most of that wasn't true. But the fact of the matter is I was abusive in my relationship. And the reason I'm able to talk to you now is because, you know, after going through almost 2 years of therapy and going through domestic violence classes and going through anger management counseling, I was able to realize what my real issue was. A lot of people look at domestic violence and they think it's about anger, but it's really about power and control. It's a power and control struggle that happens in marriages, it happens in relationships with intimate partners. And when I was able to better understand that, I really found out, to be honest with everybody, that my issue was worse than even what I thought it was.
You know what happens though? Oftentimes when it comes to a person like a James Fortune, highly esteemed, gospel, God, the Lord, you know, you get held to a different set of standards.
Of course.
So it's even harder for the average person to accept. You know?
Yeah, and you know, for me, talking to Houston was so important because, you know, this is home, and it's been the hardest here, especially when it first happened. You know, it was hard for me. I didn't even leave the house for weeks, you know, because the looks, you know, that people were giving me, and to be honest, even at church, you know, some pastors, you know, had even told me I wasn't even welcome.
What? In Houston, they told you that?
Yeah, he said felons aren't allowed in our church, you know, and this is before, you know, this is just at the beginning.
I don't even like that church.
Now
that just makes me mad.
Now, even you've done your wrong, but it would also be wrong of the preacher who's in the business of forgiveness.
That's crazy to me.
Say that. So did that make you feel some type of way?
Well, and I
know we got other people's feelings to talk about, of course.
Yeah, because I wasn't the victim. I mean, it was hurtful because you got to think, man, when this happened, fam, I was separated from my children. I was separated from my wife. And so to not even feel welcome at church, it made it difficult. And it was at that moment, that's when I'm sitting on the edge of my bed, you know, just in tears, and like I say, not that I'm the victim, but I had been taking antidepressants. I had been taking Xanax, you know, just to help me sleep. I hadn't gotten any sleep, and I had gotten a whole bottle. I was like, you know what, I really don't even feel like I have a reason to live.
So you're saying you were contemplating suicide?
Yeah,
got to that point.
Because it's like you don't, you know, I've been through different struggles in my life, but I've always had my family there. You know, I've always had my children, I've always had my wife, and I've always had the love of the church. And not that the church, you know, many people reached out and prayed for me and showed love. And but like I said, I think it was worse here in Houston because of the news here being local and me being here. It was just more it was harder for me.
Yeah, they take it much more personal.
Yeah, it was so much more harder for me. So
I couldn't believe it. I still have a hard time believing it now, to be honest with you. I'm like that. I don't know that James.
Yeah.
I don't know who that guy is, but I don't know him.
Yeah.
So still, I think it's still hard for everybody. You know?
It is, and that's why I say it wasn't that I was trying to even make myself a victim in it all. But I do want to clarify because to me, you know, there were many things in the media about, you know, my wife having broken bones and a bar stool. That none of that was true.
So
we don't even own a bar stool. We don't even
being hit with the bar stool.
We don't even own a bar stool.
Happened.
Did I assault my wife? Absolutely, and I'm not proud of it. But to me, that wasn't where the abuse started. and I found out that, you know, there's 18 forms of abuse, and only one of them is physical. There's psychological, emotional, there's verbal abuse, there's male privilege, there's economic abuse, you know, preventing and keeping your spouse.
Where were you at on this?
Were you all 18?
I wasn't quite all 18, but definitely the psychological abuse was there. The verbal abuse was there.
So
and physical is the final one on the wheel. So it's like it was only a matter of time before I got.
Hold on. I want to know, did this start in your childhood? Because I'm just so curious. Was
it had
this...
to be a learned... To me, that's a learned... To me, it's learned. When that kind of abuse, when a person is able to exert that kind of abuse over their family, it is something that has been learned, that they've dealt with. It's something that happened to them.
Yeah. Well, it's not anything that I experienced.
Really?
Anything that I experienced.
That's interesting.
It's not. You know, it's not that it wasn't exposed to me, but in my home, I never saw domestic violence in my home.
So where did it start for you then? Because I'm curious. If you didn't learn it in childhood, where did it start?
It started at childhood from things like gender training. Even in church, men are, you know, we're the king of the castle. And that's why I'm trying to, you know, verbalize it, that it starts as having a power and control issue. That was my thing. It's like I always had to be in control, and if I felt like I wasn't in control of a situation, I would lose control. And that's where the verbal abuse would start. That's where you use tactics, you use mind twisting to control the other person. And when those things stop working, after, you got to think, man, sure, we're together 16 years, then eventually I have to put my hands on you because I'm still trying to maintain that control that used to work with me, just maybe raising my voice and maybe just putting you down emotionally. Now it doesn't work, so eventually it builds up, and it became physical the night on October of 2014 when I was arrested.
That was the first time?
Yeah, that was the first time I was arrested. So as far as the physical abuse, yeah, that was the first. As far as physical, yes, but there was verbal, there was psychological, and many women, and you know, I don't know if y'all taking calls, but many women. 200 women were interviewed. All 200 said that the psychological abuse is worse than the physical abuse. The long-lasting post-traumatic stress disorder, the mental trauma that they go through from years and years of not just being abused from their spouse, but what they saw even as children. So I don't want to minimize it to, well, I just put my hands on it at night. No, she was being abused many times before that in ways that probably are going to affect her even in a worse and longer way than that night did.
When you say mental abuse, what do you mean? Can you give an example? You don't have to say the exact things.
Put downs, you know, I can't believe you did that, you know, same thing, you know, like stupid, or, you know, why, how could you do something like that, you know, what was you thinking,
calling it out,
you know, when you put people down,
you
change the perspective of who they are. And when you change the perspective of who they are, you change who they are. So you can actually change a person without even touching them. Just by the way you communicate to them, the way you talk to them, the way you put them down. You know, using the children, that's abuse, economic abuse, controlling the money to control the person, preventing and keeping them from having employment so that you can kind of have that control. You know, we're giving money when you want. All those types of forms of abuse was something that I had to realize that was wrong with me. And for me, the reason I can talk about it is because one of the things my therapist told me, fam, is that, James, part of your accountability is accepting the fact that you may never be loved, you may never be trusted or forgiven, ever.
By your wife. Yeah,
by my wife,
people.
by people
Kids.
in general.
Okay.
You may never be forgiven or trusted again.
Right.
She says because the excessive need to be forgiven is another controlling behavior. It's like you're gonna do anything to try to control people forgiving you or loving you or trusting you. She says you can't control other people, but you can control yourself. You can make sure that you're making better decisions, that moving forward you don't make the same decisions that got you in this situation.
Now, James, I have to ask, because I've heard this story too about your child that was burned or scolded or something like that as a form of discipline. And I'm just curious as to if that happened.
I've never, ever in my life, never abused any of my children.
Where do these stories come from?
Well,
because they said that they went to court about this and all these other different things.
Well, the thing with my son, that was around, I guess about 16 years ago. I was there with him, and there was an accident in the home. I take full responsibility for not watching him. I take full responsibility for not being a more attentive parent at the time. Pled guilty. My lawyer said, listen, the prosecution, they know it's not something you did on purpose. They know what happened. They've talked to him. But because you were there, because you were negligent, they are offering you probation. He said, you're not the type of person that gets in trouble, accept the probation.
But because the kid got hurt and you were there as the parent, you're still liable for what happened with this kid. So they still going to charge you with something.
Yeah, well, I had to take probation. You know, you don't get probation for doing what they try to say I did to a child intentionally. You know, definitely you know, as a parent, you are responsible. I mean, he was what, 4 years old at the time.
Right.
He's 19 now, so I that's something I still struggle with, because I still feel responsible. You know, I still feel like as a parent, we're supposed to protect our children. So if something happens under our watch, under our care, you know, that's something I've struggled with. You know, I thank God, you know, he's an adult now, and we've had a great relationship since then.
I was going to ask you, how's all this been affecting your kids ever since all this stuff, because it's been very public, and so they carry the name wherever they go and probably look like you. So how have they been dealing with this situation? We'll get to the wife later, but how have they been dealing?
They've been greatly affected, obviously. They're classmates, you know, parents. They saw the news. They know who I am. They were knowing who I was before it happened. And so it was a great effect on them. And I think, you know, they've been getting counseling. They've been getting the help they need, because it's hard. You know, me and their mom was together, you know, for 16 years. You know, so that's been a huge transition, and they know what happened. You know, we've both talked to them about what happened. I've taken responsibility and accountability with my son. You know, my son, you know, told me, he said, James, he said, Dad, you know, I worry about you. He said, you know, I see some of the things that people have said about you, you know, because kids are they got social media too, you know. But I just told him, I said, you know, James, you're going to be a much better father than I ever was, a much better husband. I said, because I'm going to help you not to make the same mistakes that I made. I'm going to teach you, you know, to not make the decisions that I made that got me into the situation.
Wow. Now, I don't know what's the status on your wife, because I know for a while they said that. I mean, I know for a period of time they kept you away from the kids and everybody, but what's the status on your wife? Is there a possibility of reconciliation, or that's out the window? Everybody has to move on. There's no communications whatsoever. What?
Yeah, there's no communication whatsoever for the next 5 years. You know, I'm on probation.
So you're not allowed to even speak to this person?
No, unfortunately, I can't speak to her, not via email, text, social media, through anything. Unfortunately, so it's my fault, and I think that. I can tell you this, that the courts have stopped me from communicating with her and talking to her, but daily I talk to God about her, you know, praying for her healing, her restoration, because, you know, while I would love to be able to talk to her, I just, you know, that's a violation of my probation that I'm on right now.
That's got to be the hardest thing in the world.
Yeah, it is hard, because, I mean, like I said, that's my best friend. I mean, we work together. We, you know, none of this was her fault. You know, none of this was her fault. You know, and just it was all me, and it was my fault.
So there's not even, so since it's 5 years, you can't communicate with that person. Obviously, you all have to divorce at this point.
Yeah. Well, we're already we're at the final stage. We've been going through divorce for a while now. We've been separated since this happened 2014, and we've not been able to communicate, and so we've been kind of going through divorce since then, and now we're kind of on the back end of that. So we're just. And now, just trying to do the best.
How do you deal with the kids with that then? Because she has the kids.
Just through.
Because when you have to get the kids, because I guess that you can be with the kids now.
Yes.
So how do y'all communicate? So okay, you can meet the kids here, so you can get the kids. How do you?
Yeah, we just through parents, lawyers, and family members and stuff like that. Yeah, we just can't have direct contact with each other.
Wow, that's terrible, James.
Yeah.
That's absolutely terrible. Now, some might say, okay, James is on this mission to redeem himself for being this bad person. What would you say to that person that says that he's willing to share his soul and tell you all these things because he's trying to be redeeming? He has a career, you know?
Yeah. Well, to me, it's not about redeeming myself. It's about, first of all, just being accountable for what I did. And this is why I waited to talk about it, because I think had I talked earlier, or of course even when the criminal was going on, I would have been making a lot of excuses. I would have been justifying it, trying to deny it. You know, at this point, I'm free. I'm free from what people think. I'm not concerned about what you write on my social media. I'm not concerned about what you have to say about me, because to me, it was about working on me. I can't control people's opinions of me. You know, I can only control James and becoming a better person and making better decisions. And so for those people that, of course, I desire, you know, to be forgiven like anyone, but it's not what I require, because in order to do that, I would never be able to heal and move forward. If I would just sit here and say, you know what, if people don't love me, if people don't forgive me, you know, because of what I did, I can, you know, I have no reason to live. But the reason I know I can look at my children and realize they've forgiven me and God has forgiven me, that's all I can do at this point.
Yeah.
So you were getting a lot of hate on your social networks?
Oh man, yeah.
What was the most hurtful thing that you saw? Because I'm sure you used to getting love.
Yeah.
So when somebody who's used to getting love gets hate, that can be a heartbreaking thing in itself. So how was it?
Well,
or how is it? Are they still hating you? Or they?
You know, it's not as much. You know, now it's not nearly as much now. But I can't even remember the most hate. I mean, it was stuff.
hateful.
You know, it was stuff. But it's too much is given, much required. You know, God gave me this platform, trusted me with the platform that He gave me, and so my decision is what got me into the situation. So whatever was said, you know, that's their issue, and you know, I think that's. It is hurtful, but at some point I just had to kind of shut it down for a while, just get off social media, because that stuff it'll eat you up, it'll kill you, man.
Right,
to see
right.
what people have to say about you, and some of the and because people base their things based on just what the media tells them anyway.
Right.
So it's always going to be magnified and based on what they hear on the news or television or whatever, or blogs. But man, I just had to just block that stuff out and just start the therapy really would help me. And I encourage anybody, if you're struggling with that power and control thing, or anger, or you know, if you're abusive in your relationship, man, get professional help. A lot of times in the church that's taboo. We like, oh, I ain't crazy, I'm gonna just pray about it. But for me, it took more than prayer. It took me really going and get professional help, and it really just helped. It helped change my whole perspective.
So was it just in your relationship, or were you controlling and looking for power in everything? Because I remember you coming down to these halls, and it just seemed like you're just such a cool guy. So the first thing I was like, man, I can't wait, because I know this a lot. You know, because when I see you, I don't see that. I see somebody who's very nice, well spoken. So I never saw that in my life. I just didn't even look at it, because when somebody sees you,
it's
and they
shocking.
think they know you, it's shocking, and you don't want to see people that you know that don't seem to have any of those traits to go off like that. So I was like, oh, that's fake. We'll get that. He'll be back or whatever.
We'll hear the real story in a week or so.
Yeah. Nah, it was and you know, it was definitely in my relationship more than anything else. You know, I mean, having control. You know, being you know, having a group and being, you know, really successful. I mean, of course you make a lot of decisions, but that type of control that I was dealing with was basically in my marriage, you know. And it wasn't a daily thing, but you know, it was certain times when I felt like I wasn't in control. I would do different tactics, and there's mind games and mind twisting that you do to try to regain that control that you want to be the man of the house. I'm the man, you know, I can't show weakness. I got to be strong. I've got to keep, you know, quote unquote, you know, my house in check, my wife in check. And that's why you use different tactics to try to control that person.
Nobody saw this? Your dad, your mom? I don't know if they're still alive, but
your family, your brother who's over here?
Nah, I mean, they didn't see it to this degree, obviously. They probably saw, you know, as all relationships, you just say, oh, they're just having a little issue, a little problem, but you know, they didn't see it.
Okay.
What did your family say, Uncle? Like I said, you are rolling with your brother today, which is cool, but initially when all this happens, when you talk to your family, what's their initial response to all this?
My family was very, very supportive and loving. You know, not supportive of what I did, but they knew that I needed somebody to still love me. You know, when you got a world full of people who, you know, have so many negative things to say. I mean, of course, they weren't okay with what I did. They're never okay with that. But they understood that I'm still family, and you can't throw family away, even if they do make the wrong decision. Somebody has to be there to love them and say, listen, you can bounce back from this and you can recover from this. And you know, to me, even when you talk about being redeemed and people, what I was told from professionals was the opposite of what I'm doing. You know, I was told in order to come back, don't talk about it. You know,
so why do you think they tell you not to talk?
Don't admit to it, just because they say just, you know, leave it alone, sweep it under the rug, and eventually something else happens, and just keep, you know, making great music, or just let time heal itself.
And be like that quiet. But you know what? Sometimes it's that elephant in the room too. You're kind of like addressing the elephant in the room, and once you address the elephant in the room, there's nothing left to address. Yeah. You know, and then after that, at that point, I think the only thing left is your music.
Yeah,
you know,
but that's what it was. It was just like, you know, nobody wanted me to talk about it. You know, professionally.
No one said, James, we think this would be a good idea. Get you back out there, talk about this, let them know you made a mistake. Let's move forward.
Not one person.
So why this bold step? Because you don't have to do it. Does it? again, I guess I go back to that redeeming word. Does it make you feel better? You want to share? Why is it so important for you to share this story?
To me, it was what God told me to do. Honestly, it was in my prayer time, because at first I was never going to talk about this. You know, I felt like it was something, you know, that happened. I knew I was wrong, but as I began to take accountability, as I began to be able to admit, you know, where I had gone wrong and where it started from, and the issue I had in my relationship, it being so controlling and abusive, that it was like, I want to share with other people, because this happens in so many relationships. Mm-hmm. You know, yeah, James is the one with the platform, James is the one on stage, but there's 85% of relationships are dealing with some type of abuse. Mm-hmm. And just because you have not, you know, put your hands on your woman or put your hands on your man does not mean that you have not been abusive to them. Does not mean that you're not mentally abusing them, which, like I said, at many times is worse than the physical abuse. So I'm not ashamed of it. I did it. As I began to release it and admit it, it removed the shame. A lot of times, because like you say, it is an elephant in the room. I wonder what everybody's thinking. I wonder, you know, how everybody judging me. But that's what I dealt with. It going to restaurants, going to, you know, Papa Do's or Waffle House, or wherever I was going something to eat at. But once I'm able to release that and admit, you know, be accountable. There's 4 things that stop us from being accountable for our actions: minimizing, blaming, justifying, and denying. Once I was able to remove those out of my life and say, you know what, this is a decision that James made to be abusive. It's nobody else's fault. We're not going to talk about, you know, what has happened. He saw it on TV or he saw it. No, this is a decision I made. Abuse is not a mistake. A mistake is something that's done unintentionally. Abuse is a choice that you make. You choose to be abusive. And just like you choose to be abusive, you can choose to stop if you understand the real issue.
How was James Fortune able to sustain himself for the last 2 years? Because like you said before, as soon as this happens, everybody is hands off James Fortune. Yeah. I mean, let's be honest, James Fortune was the hottest name in gospel music. That is just what it was. And it's like, it immediately, as soon as this story broke, it was like red light, stop, break right there on the spot. No movement. So I'm just curious how you were able to sustain yourself over the last 2 years.
Man, you know, God is good. I've been blessed, like you say, since 2000. I've had the most #1 gospel songs than any artist in gospel music, and so God truly blessed me and my family through the music. And you know, residually, I was still able to make the money from that, and you know, there were still some opportunities that I had and things that I was able to do along the way, even here most recently. So and it was just friends came and helped. You know, to be honest, friends came to my aid and helped as well, and helped us, and so. That was kind of how I was able to make it through. And my wife, she's doing, you know, really, really great and still touring. She's, you know, a phenomenal vocalist and artist in her own right. You know, she's been on tour. She's on tour with Kurt Franklin right now. And so God is, you know, he's still been good, man. He's still been blessed. He's been faithful. He didn't cut me off. So I've been blessed.
So the music is still happening. You're still working on music now. You went back to where home is, so to speak.
Yeah. Well, I hadn't been. You know, a lot of people wondering what project I've been working on, and honestly, I've been working on me. You know, I hadn't been in the studio. I'm getting ready to get back into the studio soon. Possibly release some music next year or something like that. But right now,
this is because you know, most times a person coming back doing what you're doing right now, it's a big album push that's coming with it. Yeah. It's very relieving to hear you say, nope, there's no album. I've been able to sustain myself. I've been, you know, God has been good to me. Yeah. But right now I'm on a mission to get me right. Yeah. And then maybe by next year, you know, I might start putting some stuff back out.
Yeah, I'm honestly, I am really, really enjoying, you know, these classes, man, my therapy, because to me, I realize the difference that it's making in my life, you know, and future relationships, you know, with people in general, and it's just a blessing where I am right now. I don't have the stress of the studio or working. Now, definitely, I've been writing through this process. Absolutely. You know, writing helps heal me. That's therapy for me. So I've been writing and some transparent stuff through my process, but as far as a song, I don't have nothing for y'all to play. I ain't got, you know, nothing I'm working on. I don't even have nothing that's in the studio at all. But hopefully soon, you know, as God gives me that opportunity to do it again, I'll be blessed. I mean, that's my gift. My dad told me something. He said, you know, they can take a lot of stuff from you, but only God can take your gift. They can't take your gift away.
Any fear at this point?
Nah, no fear. No fear. You know, I'm prayed up. I'm getting the help that I need. My kids, you know, Cheryl as well, and there's no fear. Honestly, I don't want to say fearless, but I am not so much concerned about people's opinion at this point. They've already said the worst. So at this point, it's like, James, just control you. Forget about trying to control what people think. Don't live based on. We do so many things because we're trying to impress and control people's opinion. It's good to just be free from that.
How about that? James Fortune, I appreciate you being able to come up here and be honest and say all that, because I'll be honest, I'll let the audience know, when James came up here, I'm like, hey, man, you know we have to ask you certain questions. There's no way for us to, like, just to do it. I mean, which I was very surprised. So I think this is something on your heart. You want to do it. I wish you all the luck in the world, man. Your whole family, in fact, because they've been through something very devastating. And the worst thing is it plays out through the media, and everybody gets to watch your life, and it becomes entertainment for everybody else, which is really, really hard. And people can look at you and make judgments. But a lot of times we need to check ourselves and what we got going on in our own lives and families as well, because we got a whole bunch of crap happening there too. But it's easier for me to point at James Fortune and say, look at him and what he's doing. So, man, good luck to you, brother. That's all I can say. Good luck to you, man. And I know you're blessed anyway, so I need to be all right.
And I appreciate that. And to me, it's, hopefully somebody can look at my life and say, you know what, I don't want that to happen to me. I want to stop this now. I want to get help, make the decision now. So many women have come up to me as I've been sharing this, which was a surprise to me. I was just trying to, mainly help the brothers, but they're like, you know what, women have been lined up, when I've been there to speak, because they're like, James, you're doing what my abuser never did. He never would just say, you know what, I was wrong. I did it. He made them feel like he did victim shaming and victim blaming. It made them feel like they're responsible. So many of them have not been able to move forward and get the healing they need because nobody took accountability. So, man, thank y'all for having me. I appreciate you for even allowing me to be here. And man, y'all have been family to me for a long time. And so, man, I appreciate you just for giving me this platform, and continue to pray for me and my children and Cheryl as well as we move forward, man. I believe that God's not done with us. He's still got something for us to do.
Absolutely. Good luck, James.
Thank you, man.
My man.